welcome Doc, the man, the myth. How are you, sir?
I'm doing spectacular. How are you, sir?
Man, doing so well. Thank you so much for coming in, man. I'm so ridiculously excited. I love nerding out about everything that you do, the entire field. So for me, especially, this is a treat, man. But we got some of our men from all over the world in here with us too. So thanks for hanging out for an hour, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, sure, man. Thanks for having me. It's great to talk to you.
No, man, honor is on this side. We've got a lot of mutual, at least acquaintances, friends. Mark Bell is a good buddy of mine. Mike Dolce
Hmm
is a good buddy. Gabrielle Lyon, Ben Greenfield. They've all been part of Thomas DeLauer. I was just talking to this morning. Bunch of really good humans uh,
hmm
that I know you love. Who do you like to follow? And this is not even part of the thing, but who do you pay attention to any of the work there and dive into what these guys are doing too? Like that's just curiosity on my part.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like basically everybody you mentioned, DeLauer is cool. Gabrielle Lyon is cool.
Yeah,
I definitely, Rob Wolf is cool. All these people, I pretty much follow them and pay attention to what they're doing.
yeah.
And
That's
just
awesome.
anybody who's geeked out on the diet and exercise side.
100%. Yeah, Rob changed my life. I mean, 20 some odd years ago when he lived in Chico, when I lived in Chico in California, I was still a student there. So this is probably 20, 25, 26 years ago. And I went to a seminar put on by him. I was a physiology major and I went to a seminar put on by Rob and I just went, oh, we're not learning this in college. We're not talking
Right.
about this stuff. And it just shifted my perspective on everything, man. It was fantastic. So, yeah, a
Mm-hmm.
whole lot of good humans. How did you get into this, Doc? Like, what piqued your curiosity? How did you get into all this?
Yeah, I mean, like honestly, it was just watching patients make these transformations with diet and exercise, and I realized this is way more powerful than all the drug stuff that we're doing. So I need to figure this out ASAP. And that was, 25 years ago because I'm old as hell. And then I just went down this super rabbit hole of just geeking out on, researching anything diet and exercise and practical implementation and how it basically modifies people's body composition, metabolic health, all the downstream chronic diseases there. And that pretty much my patients got me into it,
Got you into it.
honestly. Yeah.
Was there a lot of, so I'm super interested in the pushback because I want to obviously dive into your work. I want to dive into the books, the book that you have previously, the book coming here. Um, But did you get a lot of pushback in this field? And I ask because again, Gabrielle is a friend of mine. I was at her house, and one of the things that she was talking about was the fact that a lot of doctors throughout their entire time studying, they're looking at like a semester of real kind of bush league information as far as nutrition goes. And it's not something that's heavily promoted. You say you're old as hell, but I know for a fact I think you're 50, 51, and dude, you look fantastic. Like you are in ridiculous shape, ridiculous health. I mean, you look great. So you don't look old as hell, but this is not
Thanks.
common from a lot of our doctors, man. And so do you get pushback from other doctors focusing so much?
Not really. I think way back in the day I did a little,
Okay.
and not anymore. Now everybody's like, "Hey, what's going on over here?" Now it's actually getting a lot of attention and people are trying to jump on board. And I've just slowly watched it over a couple decades from going it was pushed back initially but
Yeah.
not for years. And now everyone's like, "Wow, that's actually pretty cool." So,
Good.
not so much
Good.
anymore.
Good, man. Good. No, good. I'm glad to hear that. So, I will tell you. So, I named all of those people. I love every single one of them. I look at all their work. Your approach when I first started diving into things you were putting out there and the protein to energy ratio. And again, I know this goes out to people who may not nerd out like we do, and even some of the guys here may not nerd out on this too. So we'll try to keep it as simple as possible. But when I first saw this and started watching you talk about satiety and now satiety per calorie, for me, it was like, oh, this is the most common sense thing that nobody is saying right here. It's this. Like, this is what makes it make sense. So, do you mind kind of giving a little bit of a high level? Because I want to get into satiety index and protein leverage. And I mean, there's so many things that I like to nerd out about too, but just a kind of your common sense approach to kind of the PE diet and the satiety per calorie concept. You mind kind of giving us a high level on that?
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, basically, humans, like throughout our evolution, you didn't want to be too thin because you'd die of starvation in the wintertime or if there was a famine or something. But you didn't want to be too fat because then you couldn't catch any food or predators would be like eating you. So there was kind of a sweet spot. And every time you eat, your body has to guess when you've eaten enough food to keep you in this sweet spot. Like, how does your body know if you ate too much or not enough? You're done eating way before all those macronutrients, enter your bloodstream and end up wherever they're going. So your body's just guessing when you've eaten enough. And it turns out that this system has just been fine-tuned over, 1.5 million years of evolution or whatever to help you stay right in this sweet spot where you're not overeating and being overfat and you're going to get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, but you're not so skinny that you're going to die of starvation during the winter time or, when there's famine or something. And what's happening under the hood is your body's detecting, your GI tract's detecting like how much weight and volume you've consumed, and these GLP-1 hormones are released to kind of communicate to your brain when you've eaten enough. And then also these nutrients into your bloodstream, like amino acids, and they're directly sensed by your brain and kind of tell you when you've eaten enough. And then the practical upshot of all that is protein is a big deal. There's this protein leverage phenomenon where basically all animals eat and eat and eat until they get enough protein, and only then will they stop eating. And this is conserved from like insects and fish and of course all mammals, but basically throughout the animal kingdom, we have these protein leverage studies in birds and every category of animal essentially from like slime molds and insects all the way up to humans and the most complicated animals, you have this strong protein leverage phenomenon where the protein percentage of your food kind of determines to some extent how much food you're going to eat. So if
Mm,
you're eating, you need a certain amount of protein. If you're eating very low protein percentage foods, you have to overeat those to get enough protein to not be hungry. And then you've eaten calories that will have to be stored. If you're
right.
eating really, really high protein percentage foods, you're basically done eating at a lower caloric intake because you're like, wow, look at all this protein. So protein percentage of the diet is probably the single greatest factor when it comes to ad lib caloric consumption, basically how much you're going to eat when you're just eating to satiety, which is what every single animal does anytime they have food in their environment,
Right.
you know, since forever. You eat until you're not hungry. That's
Right.
what all of us are doing, every day, every person, you eat till you're not hungry. And this protein percentage is a really, really big deal.
And that's going to trigger that satiety quicker than, so like, because what you said too is the fine tuning, and you have all of this going on to where your body is learning to adjust to how much, okay, so how much protein you are eating. That's going to make a huge impact. The macro, or I'm sorry, the micronutrient profile of the food. I know that's important, but that's not triggering the satiety like the protein is. Is that correct?
That's correct. Now, we humans do have an appetite for certain minerals, and if
Sure.
you're really low on sodium, you will crave salty
Okay.
foods. And we have a little bit of evidence that people who are, iron deficient are like eating nails and stuff like that, and
Yeah, totally.
people who are calcium deficient are just eating chalk. And so there's a little bit of a micronutrient influence there, but that's actually much smaller and more gradual and more
Right.
subtle. And the two really big drivers, just right off the bat, of how much you're going to eat at each meal and every day is number one, protein percentage of calories, because you're eating to get the protein. If that was a high protein percentage food, you're not going to eat as much. If it was a low percentage of protein, you're going to have to eat more. The other one is weight and volume. Humans eat, 3 to 4 pounds of food a day, 1.5 to 2 kilos of food a day, roughly on average, pretty much no matter how many calories are in there.
Got it.
So you're eating to get this weight and volume because that's how your whole GI tract has detected
Got
when
it.
you've eaten enough food, and this is tuned for foods that like a hunter-gatherer would come across, and the energy density is significantly lower of these foods, a lot more fiber, which gives them volume, a lot more water, which gives them weight, And then, of course, a higher protein percentage because, in nature, you're really struggling to find these, refined carbs and refined fats where you're getting a ton of calories and not a lot of space. So you're kind of doing two things. You're eating a certain weight and volume of food that your GI tract detects, and then you're eating a certain number of amino acids that you directly go into your bloodstream and your brain interprets that. And the goal is to kind of like combine those and make sure, okay, I'm going to eat, you know, 150 grams of protein every day and 3 pounds of food. How do I do that for the least storable calories? And it just ends up being low carb and low fat and high protein and high fiber all at the same time. It is like super common sense. Everyone who's read my books is like, why didn't I think of
Yes.
that? This is just stupid. It's like so basic and dumb.
Yep.
It should just be like everyone understands this in kindergarten. But for some reason, no, that's not exactly what's happened to us.
I I am with you, man. Like it's almost like it's almost reminds you your work to me reminds you of your own intuition. If that makes any sense. You're like, yeah, of course. Of course this is kind of how it should work, right? And you
Hmm.
what you said is you don't find these, refined fats and refined carbohydrates in nature, and you surely don't find them combined, which you see in a lot of our foods now, right? And you get this hyper palatable sensation, and so you're able to consume all of this weight in food, but it's got a massive caloric, upside that you don't necessarily want. That
Hmm.
that fine tuning that you talked about earlier, is it because we've created these kind of Franken foods that we are not as uh, close to that fine tuning anymore, right?
Right, right, exactly. Yeah, man. I mean, everything we're doing is just normal human behavior, right? So
Yeah.
all of your hunter-gatherers, when they come across a high energy density carb or fat, they're
Yep.
just going to eat the absolute hell out of it. Like the Hadza, get a bunch of honey.
Yep.
It's the highest caloric density carb you're going to find in nature. It's like 3.5 kcals per gram. And they're just binge eating the whole thing because that's the way it works. And
Yeah.
your brain releases a lot of dopamine when you do that, and the whole system's designed to encourage you to eat enough to not die of starvation because your whole goal in life is to pass your genetics forward in time. You're not going
Right.
to do that if you don't have enough energy calories and you die during the wintertime. And you're not going to remember to eat unless it's like super rewarding and driving you. So like this is like this carrot and stick thing that nature has to make sure we're doing the things that we have to do to procreate and move our genetics forward in time. So like you're super rewarded when you get this high caloric thing, your brain lights up, and that's the way evolution like makes sure you're doing these things you're supposed to do. So we're supposed to seek out high energy density carbs or fats or carbon fats together. We're supposed to binge eat these. This is how we survive to get to where we're at. Enough calories to fuel our brains, living through the winter time.
Yeah.
We're doing all the things we're supposed to do. The problem is the bulk refining of carbs and fats. We were able to create these foods that are simultaneously so low in protein and water and fiber and weight and volume that you're going to overeat them before you're full. And then
Mhm.
also so incredibly rewarding because it's like the highest energy density carbon fat you've ever seen in your life together. And your brain lights up like a slot machine. And the
For sure.
combination of these two is like a push-pull for obesity. You have to eat more because there's no weight, volume, protein, fiber, water in here. You want to eat more because, oh my God, that was good. And then like you just like completely moves obesity right down the track. And everybody ends up, super overweight, which is basically the entire globe. And we're all doing just exactly what we're supposed to do.
Right.
And the problem is, like humans have always used technology to feed themselves. We invented tools and fire and cooking and maximizing caloric return on investment. And we figured out how to do agriculture and fatten everything up as much as possible. The animals, the plants, everything's got the most carbs, the most fat. We figured out how to suck all the carbs and fat out of things, combine them together. Now we've got oil, which is the highest, energy density fat you can get, sugar, which is the highest energy density carb you can get. We mix them together, and it's so freaking tasty, and you'll eat it forever because it's maximum calories for minimum weight and volume and minimum protein. And it's just like this push and pull of obesity. And when you read all my stuff and you're like, this is all so basic and so dumb, it shouldn't have even needed a book, right? And but like nobody's really ever heard of this or thought about it this way. And then you're like,
Yeah.
oh wow, okay, that makes some sense.
Well, but which again is part of the reason it's some of my favorite stuff out there because to me, when somebody can simplify something to where you just go, oh yeah, that makes sense. To me, that's you're more likely on the right track, especially if something is tends to be overcomplicated quite a bit. So that simplification process to me is genius. We have so many. Well, there's actually two questions based on what we were just saying. They go in different directions. I'll do the other one first because I think this one might be a little bit of an maybe a quicker, easier answer. But talking about protein being that macronutrient that's driving satiety, when we're taking a look at proteins in comparison, does the bioavailability of that protein play into that? And so for those that aren't that don't nerd out about it as much, it's just the availability of the protein that's there. You'll read something that says broccoli has this amount of protein or beans have this amount of protein, right? But your body uses X percentage. The bioavailability of the protein means your body can use, if it's more bioavailable, it can use a higher percentage of that protein directly within the human system. So does the bioavailability matter when we're talking about triggering all this?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're talking about, whole foods in nature. So like,
Sure.
leaves are 45% protein.
Yeah,
Grass is, 40% protein by calories.
got it.
But
Yeah,
like, unfortunately, humans can't digest cellulose, so you're just
right,
not going to get at that protein. Like you're surrounded by high protein foods that you literally can't eat and can't get the protein out of. It's all the grass, all the weeds, all the leaves, anything green. Uh, so yeah, bioavailability is a huge big deal. Plants are always worse than animals. Now, I will say that with all of our modern processing, we can suck all the protein out of plants pretty
mhm,
efficiently. And if you're getting just the reproductive products of plants, which is like nuts and seeds and legumes, and
mhm,
you just suck the protein out of that. So if I have like a soy powder, this is like gone through a ton of processing to just literally extract all the protein
right.
out of the. We take the highest protein part of the highest protein plant and then suck all the protein out of that, and now you've got soy powder. Actually, pretty solid. It's like, you got to eat 20% more to get the right spectrum of amino acids like leucine and
Right.
some amino acids that are more present in animals than they are in plants.
Yeah.
But it's pretty good. So, like, it's less of a concern now, but yeah, if you're out in nature, good luck living off of grass and leaves, even though it's a very high protein percentage foods. Not going to happen.
Yeah, not gonna cut it. No, that's perfect. Going back to what we're talking about with so many people with these hyper-palatable foods and eating so much more, uh, more calories than we need to consume. And you're working with all of these patients and you're bringing this common sense approach. What has been your take on the almost the addictive quality of that? And I almost look at it from like a almost like a drug rehab kind of thing for some people, right? They're so addicted to eating this particular type of food. And I don't say that to knock the people. I believe that is again part of the design and I don't, that's not entirely on them. But once they're in that pattern, what's your take on how to move them over to something that makes more sense like this? What's the biggest pushback you get? What is how big is that struggle for some people, and what do you do to kind of help them overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, like, so that's so real. Most of my diabetics know exactly what they should and should need, but they're still eating the wrong things anyway because
Yeah.
it's so addictive and so rewarding. And it's almost straight up addiction medicine. I do a lot of addiction medicine, Suboxone and harm reduction and, buprenorphine and all these sorts of things. And the diabetic who knows what they're supposed to eat and still isn't doing it is basically, it really is straight up addiction medicine. And then
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of harm reduction strategies there as well, which is a combination of things. First of all, you're intentionally going out of your way to preload with a bunch of protein and fiber. And I'm like, okay, you can eat a donut, but you have to eat, a pound of lean meat, a pound of non-fat Greek yogurt, 3 pounds of carrots, or something huge
Yeah.
protein, weight, and volume first. Wait a couple hours, and then maybe at the end of the day, yes, you can have a dessert, you can have a donut or something like that. Um, Also, it's like if you're going to have this donut or this ice cream, try to get something that has a higher satiety per calorie. Buy the Halo Top ice cream instead of the Haagen-Dazs, Buy the frozen Greek yogurt instead of the ice cream, you know what I mean? You're trying to
Yeah.
every step of the way, if you can just shave down the carbs and fats, get the protein and fiber a little higher. It's not quite as delicious. The Halo Top's like a 7 out of 10, and the Haagen-Dazs
Yeah.
is like a 10, 11 out of
Yeah.
10. It's not going to be as good, but you try to find this sweet spot that's kind of a harm reduction where you're still getting some junk food, but it's after you've eaten enough protein and fiber and water and weight and volume to give you a fighting chance. And you're also trying to find a type of product that kind of replicates what is, 11 out of 10, but is like a 7 out of 10, and you're just not going to overeat it as much. And so
Right.
it really is kind of a balance. Nobody's going to just eat like boiled skinless chicken breasts and kale forever. You know what I mean? So you have to kind of find a sweet spot and a place of balance there, somewhere in the middle. And that's what I'm constantly trying to do with these
Mhm.
people. And we're trying to do that on every front. You just like try to add a little bit of protein, a little bit higher protein percent, a little bit more fiber, a little bit more water, a little bit more weight and volume, slightly lower energy density. And then, you do the same thing with exercise. You're just like baby
Right.
steps. You're like, okay, 15 minutes of walking a day. I want you to do that like a habit. And then you just like progressively overload all these things and
Yeah.
try to drag people from where they're at towards where they need to be in this slow and gradual way. And it is definitely straight up addictive. And
Yeah.
honestly, I don't blame people because like literally the whole way humans are wired is to get as many calories as you possibly can from your
Mhm.
environment because you're going to die in the wintertime otherwise, and expend as few calories in the process.
Yep.
Because as a hunter-gatherer, if you, kill a gazelle and get 2,000 calories from it, but it took you 2001 calories to hunt it
Right.
down and kill it, you're screwed. Like you're gonna, in a couple of months,
Yep.
you're just gonna die of starvation. So it's this constant economics of survival where every human is wired to eat as many calories as they possibly can while expending as few calories as possible. And this is I mean, this kept us alive for a really long time when we didn't have a lot of food around. But
Yeah.
man, is this working against us in the modern food
It
environment?
very much is now.
Hmm.
You mentioned exercise, and from what I've seen of your own kind of protocol for yourself too. I mean, you primarily are doing like progressive overload with body weight. Correct me if I'm wrong. More than anything else, and really kind of a push pull, like a push pull leg, maybe a hinge, kind of movement, and kind of maximizing intensity in short term, and really just kind of focusing there. Correct? Because your diet is so dialed. And again, guys, if you haven't so I mean, I don't promote like, hey, go look this dude up with his shirt off. Like that's not a conversation we have on this show quite a bit. But Doc's in great shape, man. He very much is. So am I correct in that roughly is kind of what you're doing fitness wise?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, like, the whole diet thing, I tried to distill it down to just very basic first principles, as simple as possible, minimum effective dose kind of thing. And I've trying to do the exact same thing with exercise. I mean, I've just really simplified it down to some just extreme basics. And, on the resistance training side, my whole my whole physique is basically, three or four things. It's like weighted dips, weighted chins, weighted split squats, some remaining deadlifts. That's pretty much it. It's basically upper
Yeah,
body push and pull and a lower body push and pull,
got it.
and I'm just doing like, single set to failure most days, and that's the whole thing. And so I'm
Yeah,
really into minimal effective dose, super basic, and then just consistency and iteration and slowly grinding progressive overload. But I really don't think that people need more complicated workout regimens, and
yeah,
everybody's like massively overcomplicating all of it, resistance training, cardio. It just gets so overcomplicated. I'm really just trying to just absolutely whittle it down to the very, very bare minimum effective dose. And you basically need just a pushing exercise and a pulling exercise for upper and lower body. And you just need to progressively overload that crap and make sure you're going hard to failure on a regular basis. And then everything else doesn't even really matter. So it's all about that Pareto principle, the 80%
Right. 80/20.
of results from 20% of effort. And I'm just like totally into that for both diet and exercise. So there's very few things you just have to do, but if you just do those bare minimum things, that your return on investment is off the charts.
So good, man. So good. I have a couple more gentlemen that are on here. I know I want you guys to be able to jump in and have some questions. I got a couple more areas in particular that I want to dive down before, but you guys can start putting your hands up at any time too. I'll start bringing you guys in here in a sec. Taking a look at the macronutrient, micronutrient profile of somebody's diet and taking a look at that minimum effective dose on the fitness side of it. One of the things that is obvious is there's a big social push for how do you, I mean, how do you look and how does, what is the body fat percentage and all that. And I get that. And I get those as markers of health. What is your functionality? What is your capability? Markers of health. Absolutely. Got it. Love it. What other markers of health do you particularly look at with your patients too? And so, and this isn't a loaded question or rhetorical by any means. It's genuine curiosity. Like, how are you looking at, um, all of this work as it relates to disease, or all of this work as it relates to, hormone profiles and taking a look at blood work, or, are there any correlations that you spend more time on than others? And that's a genuine question. I don't know how you look at it.
Yeah. And so, and like, honestly, I've had a ton of functional medicine training and all this stuff. And I've literally just backed all the way out of the room on all of that bullshit. It is so not helpful, not actionable, ridiculous. There are so few things that you really have to pay attention to. The number of labs I'm doing is extremely basic and nothing fancy, and it's all just off the shelf. And at the end of the day, body composition is metabolic health. They
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
literally the same thing. And so, a waist to height ratio is going to
Yep.
tell you pretty much as any amount of lab testing I could do. And so the testing is extremely basic. I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm not doing weird esoteric crap. I'm not doing a bunch of supplements. It's
Yeah.
like extraordinarily basic. I mean, you could really just shave it all down to uh, protein, energy density, resistance training, cardio, body
Yeah.
composition, the end. Like it's so basic. I don't even really talk about labs in the book because the list is so short. It's pretty stupid. I mean, I like fasting lipids because I like fasting triglycerides. This tells you how much fat energy is
Right.
circulating around your bloodstream because it has no place to go if you're over fast.
Right.
I like A1C, which just, tells you where you're at in terms of over fatness, basically. But you
Yeah.
could really approximate those sorts of things with a waist to height ratio in most
Yeah.
people. And
Yeah.
so it's pretty basic. There's no fancy labs that only I know the how to interpret these and only I
Yeah.
have the supplement you need. That's all basically crap. And
Yep.
so as much as I love, Peter Attia, I love Huberman, all
Sure.
these guys are cool. I'm following them. I listen to everything they say, but they spend 99% of the time on the 1% of crabs that doesn't even matter at all.
Yeah.
And you're really looking for the biggest rocks in the jar. And those are so basic that would just be one podcast each for like Atia and
Totally.
Huberman, and then we'd all move on. And so like you're not gonna sell your supplements with just like talking about the super basics of diet and exercise.
Yeah.
So I like that stuff. I'm interested in it, but that is not what anybody really needs.
It's so true, man. And I see this in, we see it in academia a lot, and we talk about this with our campus owners and everybody launching campuses. It's like the academia of it all has trained us to overcomplicate, to over explain, to just put a bunch of fluff where we could just get down to the brass tacks and just go,
Hmm.
here it is, simple, concise. And to me, that's far more effective communication, and that is kind of the roadmap for 99% of things, and I think diet and health included. So, yeah, again, I love that. And before I grab these guys too, there was something else that you recently started chatting about, and I haven't been able to listen to a ton of it yet, but it's interesting to me, especially with we got some of our men here who we've been talking about their wives going through kind of the perimenopausal cycle. And I think you started talking a little bit about this recently, exploring what that what the protein, carb, and fat intake for women in that stage. Am I remembering that correctly? And is there anything different that you're feeling? I feel like I heard you speak about that a little bit, but I could be misremembering. So I just wanted to double check because it was a recent conversation.
Yeah, actually, no. So like the
Okay.
shocking
Okay.
part is my advice doesn't really change
Doesn't really change. Got it. Okay.
based
Got it.
on age or
Okay.
gender or anything.
Okay.
Like, yeah. So there, I'm literally not saying anything different to anyone.
Okay.
It's like all this applies unless you have a type 1 diabetes or you're
Yeah.
a
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
menopausal woman. No, it's actually still exactly the same.
Cool.
Which for me is part of the beauty of it. Now there are obviously other things to look at. Like I am a fan of hormone replacement therapy for, postmenopausal men or women,
Sure.
anyone who's like basically low on these hormones, that is an option. And of course, 10% of women in this country have Hashimoto's disease with hypothyroidism. So I am checking, some hormones and doing some basic stuff there, but it's also extremely basic. There's nothing really fancy. It's like if a woman comes in and she has undetectable estrogen or testosterone, we're gonna maybe consider giving her some as long as she doesn't have a history of blood clots, severe
Right.
coronary disease, active estrogen receptor positive breast cancer, something like that.
Right.
So there are some just basic hormone stuff that goes beyond diet and exercise, but that really applies to the doesn't really apply to most people.
Yeah. It's more the exception than the rule. No, it makes
Mhm.
sense. Awesome. All right. Let's get some of these guys in here. Eric, good to see you,
Hello,
sir.
how are you?
Good, man. Good to see you, brother.
Hey, Eric. Uh, hey, I'm just looking at your stuff for the first time, and it's really connecting with me. So it's super interesting, and I'm going to ask some questions that probably seem very obvious based on what I'm seeing, but I'll just ask anyways, since I have the opportunity here. But I assume like fruit is like something that's not like a fruit season right now for me is like golden. It's right here up the street. I can go up there like every day. But fruit, I was talking about, ask about fruit and then dried fruit, like raisins. I end up having a lot of raisins lately. I think that's probably not good. Um, and I just like want more. And then I wanted to ask about rice. Just overall, those sound like when I look at the charts, seems like probably not the best thing for me that I could be doing
Mm,
something different.
Yeah. Okay. So great question. Okay. First of all, the problem with fruit is it has no protein at all, but it has like a crazy amount of weight and volume for the calories inside. And since you have a two-part goal, get enough protein and get enough weight and volume, fruit is perfect for like half the equation. So like if you ate like a pound of skinless chicken breast, uh you're getting enough protein, but you're still going to be starving because you did not get enough carbohydrate, which humans have an appetite for, weight and volume, which you're definitely going to eat until you get that. So if you had like a pound of skinless chicken breast and then like two or three apples, boom, amazing combo. You're getting like huge amount of weight and volume and fiber and water from the apples. You're getting no protein, however, but you ate skinless chicken breast. So like those two together is awesome. And in fact, the combination of like lean meat and fruit, this is
mm.
like the ideal human diet. This is probably what we're supposed to be eating because we descended from frugivores, but we're hunter gatherers. And so, yeah, like a lean protein source plus fruit, amazing. Like, breakfast for me all the time. Giant bowl of non-fat Greek yogurt. I'll eat like a pound of that. And then a bunch of berries, blueberries, raspberries. Uh, of course, fruit juice, you have a problem there. You've basically gotten the sugar out of proportion to the fiber and the volume. And you're when you put the apple through the juicer and just suck out all the juice and leave all that pulp and weight and volume and fiber behind, you're shooting yourself in the foot. So fruit juice is bad. Dried fruit is also significantly lower satiety per calorie. Unfortunately, you're concentrating the sugars. You have way less water, way less weight. It's very, very light. Anything that's been dehydrated, the satiety per calorie is a little bit worse. I mean, you can eat it, sure, it's fine, but it's not the best if your goal is fat loss. Now, if you're burning tons of calories, if you're like, hiking and running and stuff, yeah, you want dried fruit because you're trying to get more calories for less GI distress. So I love it for someone who's, if trail mix or something like that, that's for somebody who's burning a lot of calories. But if you're just trying to stay weight stable, I would prefer regular fruit over dried fruit because the dried fruit has double the caloric density. You know what I mean? But yeah, fruit is awesome, but it's only giving you the weight and volume and no protein at all. So it's like 50% awesome. And that's why everyone gets confused. Like, like the carnivores are like, you should never eat fruit. It's, it's basically a wet bag of nature's candy. And it's just, like, why? But the reality is humans have an appetite for carbohydrate. You need, 50, 60, 70 grams of carbs just to be alive. You can either eat that from a couple apples or make it the hard way out of protein via gluconeogenesis, but you're still going to be kind of hungry. You're not honoring this natural taste for carbohydrate that humans have for a very good reason. And you're just probably not going to be able to sustain that, like the pure carnivore thing. So yeah, it's a very, I know there's a like an easy question, very long, complicated answer, but the reality is fruit is half awesome and a really good thing to combine with a lean protein. Now, if you're eating a really fatty protein and a bunch of fruit, well, you're probably overdoing it on the energy side because you're getting, a bunch of fat from, like, if I just eat fatty meat and no carbs at all, like, Sean Baker and, I'm doing a fatty ribeye thing, I can get away with this super fatty meat because I don't eat any carbs. But if I'm eating all the fruit I want, I better have a lean protein or I'm going to be overdoing the energy side, if that makes sense to you. So fruit, love it with lean protein. Not going to recommend it for somebody who's eating the fattiest proteins they can get. You better be low carb if that's what you're doing. That will work. It's possible, but it's not quite optimal because you do have this appetite for carbohydrate and sweet tasting things. And fruit satisfies that very nicely with caveat that has no protein at all. So it better only be, half your diet and the other half better be a lean protein.
That makes sense. What about that? What about that white rice and
Oh,
how
right.
some
Same,
people
kind of the same thing
say,
with
yeah, similar?
white rice, like a perfectly reasonable carbohydrate source.
Yeah.
I like whole grains as a carbohydrate source. Much prefer brown rice to white rice. If you look at the micronutrient profile, brown rice just completely nukes white rice in every way. So I prefer brown rice from a micronutrient standpoint. Fiber, it's definitely a little bit better, but I do think rice, any kind of whole grain, is a reasonable carbohydrate source. Air pop popcorn, love it. Brown rice without any added fat, love it. Any kind of like oats, your steel cut oatmeal, love it. But that is half your diet, and you have to combine it with a protein. Like, like you look at like Athlean X, right? This do you
Yeah.
know who he is? He's on YouTube and he's just this
Yeah.
perma jacked, like he's like the most jacked dude ever. He has a steel cut oatmeal, bowl of steel cut oatmeal every morning for breakfast. Yeah, that's half his breakfast. The other half, he literally just pours a whole carton of egg white
Big
into a
whites on it.
bowl and
Yeah.
frickin' microwaves that shit and puts like some salsa on it for just a 0 calorie condiment. And so he's eating like half his breakfast is congealed egg whites
Yeah.
and the other half is steel cut oats. Brilliant combo. You're getting the weight and volume, fiber, and water from the whole grains that have been cooked with water in them. You're also getting all this protein from a super lean protein source, and that's a recipe for just being jacked. So yeah, fruit and whole grains is
Awesome.
totally fine for half your diet. If the other half is just the leanest protein you can get and a lot of it, that's going to work.
That's really good.
Perfect.
That's
Thank you.
awesome. Good question, Eric. Yeah, and Sean, I saw Menard, I saw your question in there and he answered it. Yeah, as he was going through that too, he answered it. It was a great question around performance and needing more carbs. But he said you answered it in there when you're talking about, high performance and then the utilization of maybe something like a dried fruit or white rice. Makes sense. My man, Mr. Wild.
Hello. Thanks, Mr. Naiman, for coming on.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, no, thanks for being here.
so yeah, you definitely answered part of my question in regards to carbohydrates. The I'd like to hear your take though on, as an endurance athlete, there's there was in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, there was a lot of, high carb fueling. There was the whole like carbo load the day before your activity or your event. Um, that got kind of pushed away for a little while as the kind of the carnivore ketogenic diets came through and people were becoming more fat adapted and trying to utilize fat as fuel versus bringing on lots of carbohydrates. And I went through that whole process and had some success in it, but there's this new kind of revelation in the endurance space where records are being broken across the board and in ultra marathons and cycling events and whatnot because they're bringing on a certain amount of carbs per hour during activity. They're ranging from 60 grams per hour all the way up to some people are doing 200 grams per hour. Obviously, the intensity is going to kind of dictate how much carbs per hour one would need, and obviously the GI stress is going to dictate how much a person individually can take on. But I'd just like to hear your kind of take on if you are up to speed on the carbs per hour in the endurance space. Um, and then kind of the biggest thing I'm wondering is the health benefits long term in regards to bringing on these gels and these. I mean, you see these guys even like Sour Patch Kids during these
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
rides and runs and stuff like that. And so I'd just like to hear your take on kind of that high carb kind of in the endurance space.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, and so the reality is you've got these two extremes that are possible. And optimal is somewhere in the middle, a little bit more in the middle. So, like, you can go zero carb, just pure keto, and it does give you a couple superpowers. You're like so fat adapted, you can go for days without eating. It's not even a problem. You can basically run an ultra at a fairly low intensity forever. Like you can run indefinitely if you're fat adapted. This is a superpower. You don't have to eat any calories. You're just like basically you've maxed out the throughput of the whole fat system, getting fat out of your fat cells, burning fat for energy. Like you can get really, really good at that. However, you absolutely lose out on that top end, that sprint, that high. You get so good at using fat, you actually lose that high end burning carbs. You can do the opposite. You can just do extreme carbosis, where you're basically doing dextrose training and you're just eating sugar. Everything's sugar, 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 sugar. You're like consuming as much sugar as you can. You're just extremely doing the sugar side. That will actually really improve your high end. This is absolutely a proven fact. I think for most people, for most sports, being tuned somewhere in the middle is probably where it's at. And
Yeah.
anytime you see these two extremes that both seem to work, they both seem possible. They're valid for certain people at certain times. You see them on social media. This guy's never eaten carbs. This guy's never eaten fat. They're making it work. Anytime you see these extremes, you know the answer has to be somewhere straight down the middle. And it
Yeah.
isn't a U-shaped curve where the ends are possible and not optimal. And you will absolutely be more optimal somewhere in the middle. And the reality is, you want to do a little bit of everything. You want to do some carbohydrate during the event. Absolutely, hell yes, that will improve your high end. But you also want to do some lower carb, glycogen depletion type training at some point in your training. So you have that like, no calorie thing functioning to some extent, and you really want to be right in the middle. And that does mean that you have to do some of both, and you have to have higher and lower carb workouts, and you have to be able to, go to both edges. You won't be as fat adapted as the zero carb person. You won't be as high end as the dextrose training dude who's eating 800 grams of sugar, literally dextrose, powdered dextrose a day. But you want to be somewhere in the middle. And that's going to be true for performance. That's going to be true for health and pretty much all the way around. You don't want to be on the extremes. And everything that's polarized is like that. Like politics are like that. You do not want to be an extreme end. Every issue where people are on the super hard ends is like no one should ever take a statin. Everyone should be on a statin. The answer is always somewhere right down the middle. It's down the middle. And it really, really is. So it's going to be different for everyone depending on usually the duration of their event, and just like the intensity and duration is going to dictate the shorter, higher end stuff. You might want to aim a little more on the carb side. The super grindy, ultra marathons, a little bit on the lower side, but you want to be in the middle.
It makes sense. I mean, that is metabolic flexibility, right? Yeah, I mean, it really is. And I remember speaking of the extremes, I remember hearing you say something like validity doesn't equal necessity, right? And it's like something like that, right? Whereas like validity is good. You can have some valid examples on both sides, but it doesn't mean it's the necessity for everybody. And it tends to be something in that middle range. Jay, have you seen the sugar diet research? So like Mark, I love Mark. I love Mark Bell. He's great, man. He's hyped up on this sugar diet sort of thing. And I was on a text thread where Dolce is just talking all kinds of trash to him, and it's hilarious. And they're doing it kindly and they're having fun with it. But Mark's all hopped up on this thing now where he's just like slamming fruit and smoothies and I mean sugar, but talking about Sour Patch Kids, and he's slamming all this stuff during the day, and then at night he has a lean meat and a veggie sort of meal, and he's just like, this is it, like this is where I want to get. But it's again just another example, one of those extremes, man. Yeah, so fast.
Yeah, I mean, I love Mark Bell, and he's awesome, and he's super entertaining, and I'm glad he's doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
But he is kind of careening from one guardrail to the other, and then in the meantime, some of us are just going straight down the middle and main gaining the whole time, and ending up at the same place. So you don't really have to do that, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, totally. And that's where Mike's giving him grief about that too. But yeah, super good guys, man. Amian.
Hey, sir. Thanks for joining us today. My question, since you brought politics up a second ago, kind of going in that direction, is with the Make America Healthy Again, or the MAHA movement with Bobby Kennedy and whatnot. What are your thoughts on what they're trying to do there? Are they going in the right direction? They being too extreme? Just interested in your thoughts on how it relates to your work and your contributions. Over.
Right. Well, okay, so I hate politics, and I am right down the center. I'm like alt middle. I can make fun of both ends equally well. And so I'm like, I really like try to be more like central common sense kind of thing, where like the extremes are just absurd. And I think a lot of people see that. So I love the whole concept of like, make America healthy again. I absolutely love it. And at the same time, some of the people who are in charge of this are not the smartest people ever. I'm just gonna like, I'm not like, this doesn't mean I'm like some sort of liberal whatever thing, but like I realize that some of the people who have this vision are not that smart, and so it scares me a little bit because I don't know if it's going to be implemented properly. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but yeah, like I'm a little nervous.
Yeah, that's fair. What do you think, Amian?
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we tend to I think we all tend to kind of, and again, anybody can be wherever they want to be from the political spectrum. I think we all tend to kind of try to ride that middle, like let's not get too extreme and let's just kind of pay attention to what's going on.
I like kind of the middle. I don't know why. Maybe that's boring or whatever, but that's kind of where I lean.
I'm kind of with you. I'm not going to get sucked into one side or another just because it's Bloods versus Crips. Like
exactly.
Let's pay attention and see what we think. Speaking of Bloods versus Crips, Matt Conway. Gosh, if we went straight from Bloods versus Crips to Detroit. Like, yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah. Good to see you,
Don't make me start throwing them up for Mr. Naiman here.
Right?
But,
yeah, sure.
I appreciate your time today, sir. My question is, I'm a relatively fit guy, I would say. I work out, at least 6 times a week, cold plunge, sauna, eat right, all the things. I still have that stubborn side and stomach fat. And the other day, I was hit with the algorithm that cortisol could be the reason. I do eat primarily carnivore, mixed fruit with some light nuts. What would your recommendation be for, I guess, fighting off that stomach fat from the cortisol? And is it just like is it real? Is the cortisol really causing stomach fat, or
Yeah, first of all, that's basically just dumb. Like the whole
Okay.
cortisol thing, it's not helpful. It's not actionable. Okay, let's say we measured your cortisol and it's really high because you're stressed out. What the hell are you going to do about that? Like absolutely nothing. This is not actionable. There's no drug, there's no supplement. If you won the lotto and you just were sat by the pool on your mega yacht all day and had like no stress, yeah, maybe your cortisol will be lower, but that's like so not helpful, so unrealistic. It's so
Right.
ridiculous. People are like, "What about my cortisol?" I'm like, "Okay, let's just pretend we checked it. It's really high. Now what?" Like, you can't do anything about that. That's it's supposed to be high. Like, this is just like not helpful. It's extremely not helpful. Now, it's true that high cortisol will make you fat. I can just give a bunch of prednisone pills to anybody and they'll gain 20 pounds of fat, and it's brutal. But you can't do anything about that. So it's not even helpful to talk about honestly at all. The reality is you're never going to get as lean, as perma-lean as you want to be, probably for a good reason. And again, there's a sweet spot there, right? Body fat. If you were just walking around, 10% all the time, you would basically be miserable, So I work with these, bodybuilders, bikini models, fitness, aesthetic people. They're so miserable when they go too low on this low end. They basically feel like crap. Their libido is just whoop, gone. Like I will have, these natural bodybuilders doing a show, and after peak week, their testosterone levels like 100. I mean, they basically wouldn't care if they never had sex again. They're like so depleted. I mean, it's not good. It's not optimal. On the other hand, like I have all these overfat people, and they also have low testosterone because their belly fat's just aromatizing it all into estrogen, and it's basically slowly turning men into women and women into men. So you really, really, really want to be at that sweet spot. And, I'm guessing you're probably already there at like some 15% thing where you're not going to be able to post, six-pack photos on Instagram every day of the year. But the reality is most people are not doing that. All of these, all these people who post these pictures are dieting down, getting super lean, taking a million pictures, and then the whole rest of the year they're over fat. So like
Mhm.
I'm a portrait photographer and I do a lot of fitness photography for bodybuilders and bikini models and stuff. And they will just get tons of photos made that, peak week, right before and after a show, tons and tons of photos. And then the whole rest of the year, they're like way significantly fatter. They're at least,
Mhm.
5% body fat higher or more. And they're just bulking and they're feeling good and they're living their lives. But then they just diet down really hard, take thousands of photos, and then all year long you'll see these on their Instagrams. And it's a little bit not fair and it's a little bit demoralizing, but you're probably fine. You might actually be
Right.
optimal, and getting thinner might not be that optimal. I mean, it's only going to be optimal for your Instagram photos. And then you have to basically just diet down for a couple weeks, get super lean, feel awful, take as many photos as you can, and then just like bulk right back up to wherever you're at. So I don't know that you're going to be able to get perma-lean as lean as you want to be. So everybody has this goal. Like this is where I want to be, well, year round. I want to walk around this ripped and jacked. You're going to get halfway there, and that's it.
Okay.
And you're probably already there. So I don't have a real magic secret, but it sure as hell it has nothing to do with cortisol.
Okay.
I
That's
mean,
good
like,
to hear.
and
Thank
if
you.
it did, you still can't do anything about it.
No, 100. And then I got a second part that, this is a question that my fiance and I talked about this morning, and this might be outside of your scope. So please feel free to shrug it off if it is. But as far as Ozempic and pregnancy are concerned, we were talking about getting pregnant, and she was also talking about getting on Ozempic. Would you, and I know everywhere is saying don't get on it. And then you have the women's side of TikTok and the algorithm saying get on it immediately. There's no bad to it. What is your take right now is there any correlation between, and I know it's relatively new, between birth defects or causation with getting on something like Ozempic, because they have a lot of non-brain or non-name brand now that are relatives of it. So what's your take on that?
Right. So, once you're pregnant and you know you're pregnant, pretty much everyone's going to tell you don't take a GLP-1 receptor
Right.
agonist because people get so not hungry when they're on those that they might just not eat anything. And then you're setting yourself up for a neural tube defect because you ate no folate for months or something like that. So I'm not a huge fan of taking these. If you're actively trying to get pregnant or you know you're pregnant, yeah, you should absolutely not do it. However, if you're just, contemplating pregnancy in the future and, but you're not pregnant yet, you're not like actively trying right now, getting better body composition and better metabolic health would actually be beneficial to your pregnancy. So someone who can't lose weight with diet and exercise, and I get it. I have patients who both their parents were morbidly obese, all their siblings are morbidly obese. They were morbidly obese in grade school. They've been overfat their whole life. It's just been like they come from generations of overfat people, and they're just kind of screwed. And in that setting, I think a GLP-1 receptor agonist is perfectly fine. You can also layer that right on top of all of this diet and exercise stuff. And some people will actually really struggle with fertility until they can lower their body fat with a GLP-1 drug, and then they'll actually get pregnant. I've seen that. The drug itself, there are certain drugs where if you're on it when you get pregnant, it's a nightmare disaster. You should probably terminate the pregnancy. You're gonna if you're on Accutane or one of these crazy drugs where we know you're gonna have defects and problems. It's not like that. Nobody thinks that a GLP-1 is gonna cause some major birth defect. So it's contraindicated in pregnancy, but I don't think that if someone incidentally got pregnant while they were on tirzepatide or semaglutide or liraglutide or any of these, I don't think it's going to be a huge disaster. They should stop the drug once they know they're pregnant. But it's not like, oh my God, you got pregnant and you were on Zepbound at the time and this horrible thing is going to happen to your kid. No, probably not. Not at all. So, obviously you want to take a multivitamin with a milligram of folic acid in it. Especially if you're taking any sort of weight loss drugs, just to make sure you're tanked up on micronutrients so you don't have a kid with a neural tube defect. But yeah, if you're taking a prenatal vitamin with folic acid and you're when you do eat, you're eating the healthiest foods you can get, then a GLP-1 in someone who's contemplating future near-term pregnancy is not that bad of a thing. You should still just maximize nutrient density and try to be as healthy as you can, and then stop the drug when you get pregnant. But it wouldn't be like a total disaster.
Incredibly helpful. Thank you so much.
Awesome, man. Now, I know we're at an hour, Doc, and I want to honor your time. We do have one more hand up. Are you okay?
Oh, I've got all the time in the world,
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. Mr. Walsh.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your time. When you were talking about bodybuilding, I was a bodybuilder for 2 years, and I instantly went to remembering how miserable I felt leading up to those shows. So
yeah.
Wait, you're not still a bodybuilder, Mr. Walsh?
No.
You could have fooled many of us, sir.
But yeah, I would be so miserable, and I'd be like, why am I doing this? I'm doing this just to look good for a day.
Yeah, it's terrible. I hear you.
So that's why I walked away from it. But and this might be feel free if you don't have any advice for this, but some of my Apogee brothers and I we're gearing up for a fast. And being the type of person that I am, I tend to do things like super hardcore. I was wondering if you had any tips or tricks for people when they go on a fast?
Yeah, bottom line is the fatter you are, the longer you can go, no problem. The thinner you are, the shorter you should fast. Full stop. The reason your bodybuilder in the single digits who's doing show prep is eating, a little Tupperware every 4 to 6 hours. You're eating 4, 5, 6 meals a day. You're eating protein right before you go to bed at night. It's because you literally can't scavenge enough calories from your fat to go any length of time without burning muscle. So lean people should not do extended fasting. The leaner you are, the less you should extended fast. To the extremes, like if you're a natural bodybuilder dieting down for a show and you're at 7% body fat, you want to eat a large bolus of protein at least every 8 hours. And then as you get, maybe every 6 hours, maybe every 4 hours, as you get leaner, you literally have to eat more and more and more frequently because you cannot get enough calories from your fat tissue. Now, if you're like 600 pounds, if you're on my 600-pound life, I don't care if you don't eat for a year. I mean, you should get some electrolyte. You should take a multivitamin, drink some electrolyte stuff. Make sure you got enough potassium, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, you can just go for a year without eating. Nobody cares. Who cares? Like, you're going to lose some lean mass, but you'll be fine. So the fatter you are, the longer you can go, no problem. The leaner you are, the shorter you can go, or you will be burning muscle, and that is bad. And it's just perfectly linear all the way up and down the scale. So someone as lean as yourself, I would literally not fast over 24 hours because you will actually lose lean mass and strength, and it will not really benefit you. Yeah, and once again, everyone's like, fasting's awesome or fasting's worthless, and the answer is right in the middle, and it depends because it's all about how many calories you have available on your body. You can only extract, 30 kcals per kilogram of body fat per 24 hours. Like, there's a cap to how much fat you can get out of your body fat. And if you have hardly any body fat, you're getting hardly any fat out of it. And you're actually burning muscle just to stay alive. This is not really helping you out. You will actually lose lean mass and then replace fat mass even faster. I mean, look at Peter Attia, who was doing these quarterly, like, week-long fasts or whatever, and actively worsened his body composition and then just rage quit those things. He was doing it because it sounded cool on paper, autophagy and all this other like bullshit. And the reality was, if you're fairly lean, you're just burning lean mass when that happens, and then you rebound the fat mass faster than the lean mass, and you're actually just slowly worsening your body composition. Not a fan, not doing anything good for you. You get just as much autophagy anytime you're in a negative calorie balance. So just like do some hard workouts, eat a little bit less, do a protein sparing modified fast where you're just drinking, 200 grams of whey shakes and no carbs or fats. That would be better. There's a million things you could do that would be smarter and better and more beneficial in the long term. Now, I mean, like, unless you just want to do something really, really hard, but it actually worsens your health and body composition. But then I think there's better hard things to do than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you said extended fast, like for somebody like myself that's fairly lean, would you kind of cap that around 24 hours?
Yeah, I would. Yeah. If you're like, 12% or body fat or lower, pretty lean guy,
Yeah.
I would not be fasting over 24 hours. It's not going to be value added, and it will be slightly bad for most people most of the time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Good question, B-Dub. Yeah, that was good. And I know Mr. Bryson's at work too, but he typed it in here. He says, what about gut health? He says, during your diet, the balance of nutrition and meeting your needs, have we seen an increase in gut-related issues due to overprocessed foods or the oversaturation of weight of bad foods playing a part in this issue? So I guess just gut health in general, what are the kind of some of the trends and potential whys behind that you're seeing?
So, gut health is a real thing. It's a big deal. However, it's 100% the cart and not the horse. You know what I'm saying? So the gut health is responding to what you've been eating and how healthy you are. And trying to drive your health through your gut is completely ridiculous, absurd, non-helpful. So I care about gut health retroactively. I'm like, yeah, you ate crap and you're horribly unhealthy, and oh, look, your gut health sucks. So it's not going to be like, let's get your gut health better. And hopefully that drives the whole thing in reverse to the point where you're healthy and you're eating the right stuff. Like that's completely backwards. Like, so gut health is just a consequence, not a major driver of health. I pretty much ignore it completely. All of the advanced stool testing and stuff is not evidence-based, total garbage, basically non-helpful. And the goal is to just eat healthy foods, healthy living, healthy body composition, and then your gut health is probably going to be good unless you have like, giardia, or if you drank out of a puddle, you've got an amoeba or something. That's a little different. So like I don't spend any time talking or worrying or thinking about gut health at all. And I know a lot of people are really into that, but the reality is, none of this stuff is evidence-based. The prebiotics, the probiotics, the advanced stool testing, how many colonies of this versus that you have, none of this is evidence-based. We know that if your health sucks, your microbiome sucks.
Yeah.
But it's not like, okay, I am just going to do a fecal transplant and then suddenly I'll be like totally ripped and jacked.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really downstream, unfortunately. Literally.
But I mean, dude, that's so good. And again, somewhat intuitive, almost.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
And a lot of people majoring in the minors on this gut health stuff.
yeah, it makes sense. I believe it. Man, that's so good. All right, so before we let you go and I do the debrief with these guys, I definitely want to talk about the book. So the PE diet, and then we've got another book. What's going on with this? What are we talking about in terms of what's the difference? What are we looking at? Timeline. I want to talk books here.
Oh, right. Okay, so 5 years ago, I wrote the PE diet, and
Yeah.
it's really all about protein leverage. And I wrote this because nobody's ever heard of protein leverage. Nobody knows how it works. Everyone's clueless. It was really only discovered, a decade or two ago, and so it's kind of like not a household term. So the PE diet was all about, oh, by the way, every animal on Earth, as you raise or lower the protein percentage of their diet, they automatically eat more or less calories. This could be important. This could be a big deal. So that's the starting point. Very, very basic. Um, and then this year I wrote satiety per calorie, which takes it to the next level. Okay, yes, protein percentage is a big deal, but other big deals are energy density, eating until you consume a certain weight and volume, the hedonic factors of carbs and fats together, and high energy density carbs and fats together, and how those factor in, and then exactly what you can do on a practical level to deal with all this stuff. Like how can you change your diet so you're leveraging all of these things. And so both these books are pretty much just available anywhere books are sold. And they're kind of fringe. Like these were both self-published. No publisher would even talk to me. I never even got one to return my calls. Entirely done by, self-published, basically. So like not a huge audience. They're fairly niche, and I don't even really care. I just wrote these to make my job easier because I just give a free copy to all my patients. I'm like, read this. Maybe it'll help you out with your diet. Maybe.
Yeah.
And so I'm not like trying to sell a bunch of them or anything. And let's just say I'm not quitting my day job. But I think these books are, I wish more people knew about this stuff. It
Yeah.
feels like something that's so basic and practical and helpful that everybody should know, but nobody really does. So the only reason I'm even championing them at all is that I just feel like it's something people should know. And
Agreed.
you know what I'm saying?
Agreed, man. No, I highly recommend it, man. I mean, honestly, like I said, I love all of those people we've been talking about. I love paying attention to everybody's work, and there's some interesting stuff that comes out, and some people majoring in the minors, and sometimes that is unique and it is interesting. But when we're talking just foundational human performance, human health, getting the body composition where it needs to be, again, for my money, that has been some of my favorite work like is yours, and just going, yeah, this makes sense. And it's such fundamentally, it is so intuitive and simple to understand that I don't see how it won't help anybody who takes the time to dive in. I really do fundamentally believe that, man. So I
Oh,
think
wow. Yeah. Thank you so much. That's what I was aiming for.
that's it.
And,
I think it's important work from that standpoint. Very much
yeah.
so.
Yeah. And I have these money back guarantees. It's like, if you can find a better book on the basic principles of diet and exercise, you get a full refund and you keep the book. But you have to tell me what book that was, because I want to read it.
I want
So
to read it.
far,
Yeah.
I haven't heard, no one's come back to me with
Yeah.
anything. So
Yeah. Agreed.
yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I wrote the best book ever, but if there is a better one, please tell me what it is.
Yeah, 100%, man. No, like I said, fundamentally, just I so sound so good, so good. Where does because we're gonna make sure we get this out obviously on our YouTube, on the podcast platform. We'll put it internally to all of our folks too, but we'll get it out there externally. Where does everybody go to find Dr. Ted?
Oh yeah, well, I'm at uh at Ted Naiman on all the socials, YouTube and Instagram and X, and um website tednaiman.com. But anyway, yeah, just Ted Naiman, and then you can just Google me or Google the books, and they're pretty much anywhere books are sold.
Yeah, not hard to find. Doc, this is awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you again for your time. Thank you for your work. Super excited. I'm going to take these guys through a little bit of a debrief, and I know I have a couple more meetings, but I'm going to shoot you a message a little bit later too. I want to send you just a little something to say thanks, and obviously we'll be posting and tagging and doing all that stuff when we get it out, man. But again, I want to champion your work as much as possible because I think it matters. Doing work that matters, man, and I'm just really appreciative.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Honor is mine. We'll talk soon, Doc.
All right, sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks, sir.